In this week's video short, we're going to show you a rack of lamb that's been herbed with our own simple seasonings blend of spice-rageous spices. We're also going to do eggplant and honey bourbon glazed pears. We're going to begin with our rack of lamb this evening first to get everything started. You can hear those sizzle and sear as soon as they drop onto the block. And we're going to lay these in such a way that the nicely Frenched rack falls to the outside of the cooking area. No need to worry about that. Drop those on there. Put those fat cap down first. Actually, turn this one around and do them all the same way. Put them fat cap down, let them cook that way for a while first. That way you get the benefit of the fat on the rack actually kind of searing, cooking, bubbling up, helping to moisten all of those herbs a little bit more that we put onto the rack. So we're going to let those cook for a little bit and we'll be back in a few minutes. You can hear the racks sizzling and searing nicely on those fat caps. See a little bit of the juices bubbling out of the top of the rack here and here. The thing about cooking a rack of lamb is you have to be very careful so as not to cook the outside so quickly that the inside is left with what they refer to as a bullet, this really round, hot, red, raw, rare center. Lamb is usually good done to medium rare at best. We're going to shoot for that medium rare. When we pull it off, let it come up another 5 to 10 degrees while the meat rests and we finish cooking the rest of the dinner. But as you can see, everything is cooking along nicely. We're going to leave things sit for just a little bit longer. This is one of the nice things about cooking lamb on the salt block. Because lamb is a fattier meat, you typically tend to get flare-ups, and so when you get those flare-ups, what winds up happening is all of the little ribbies on the rack itself wind up getting scorched and charred, and they wind up breaking off and disappearing. But having the salt block in the way allows the salt block to actually absorb some of those fats and prevents the flame from actually doing that to the rack. So we're going to let these cook for just a little bit longer, and we're going to be back in a few more minutes. This is the other nice part about cooking rack of lamb on the block. You can see you get this nice even coverage, kind of like an oven, but better in a lot of ways. So we've tipped the rack up onto its side so we can start to get that underside cooking as well as it has on the other two sides. And we're going to give this another couple of minutes, and then we'll come back out and rotate them again. Now, cooking lamb is something that you're not entirely familiar with. As you start to get toward the end of the cooking process, you're going to find that you're looking for sides to rotate the lamb to kind of finish evenly cooking the lamb. And so each piece may wind up being laid differently on the block or on the grill. In this case, we've got one standing upright. We've got the one behind it laying totally down on its back with the ribs down. Kind of trying to get a little more heat to it, but protect it from overcooking too much. And then we've moved our thickest rack over to the hottest portion of the salt block. So we're going to leave everything together there for just a couple more minutes and rotate it out when we're done. You can see we've got our racks all piled up here, kind of getting one last rotation to get them through. But you can see they're nice and evenly seared all the way around. The bones are just starting to get a little bit of char on the tips, so that's how we know we're getting close to being done. So we're going to leave those just like that, and next time around we're going to pull them off. You can see we've got a nice little layer of lamb fat here going on as well. We're going to use that and the herbs that are there with our eggplant when we bring our eggplant out and throw those on next. So we've got our eggplant on there now. We're going to get those cooking. We're going to let them absorb some of the fat from the lamb, some of the herbs and spices and salt off of the salt block. Everything should be really good. Come back in a few minutes. As you can see, our eggplant has grilled up very nicely here on the block. It's absorbed all of the lamb fat that was there. We've got a little bit of the herbs left, a little bit of browning going on. We're going to rotate through one more set of eggplant, and then we're going to move on to our final fruit piece. So we finished our eggplant. We're going to conclude our meal with our honey bourbon glazed pears. Pears have quite a bit of moisture anyway, which is why we're going to use them to kind of pull up all of the goodness that's here on the block. But because of the additional moisture with the honey and bourbon glaze, we're going to put a little bit of butter on the block to kind of slow the salt dissolving process and to add a little bit to the caramelization that's going to occur when the honey and the bourbon mix with the butter on the salt block. And so it won't be a caramel because caramels really aren't done that way, but it will provide some additional flavor because we've moved the butter along with the bourbon and the honey. So we'll go ahead and get those dropped onto salt block here as quickly as possible. We've prepared these pears ourselves. You can see just a little melon scooper, a little bit of cutting. You can take out all the stem and the seed, all of the pit, and in so doing you can really get a nice looking pear. So we're going to drop those cup side down first. Let them do most of their cooking like that. You see the block is still nice and hot, which is what we want. Kind of got to try to figure out how to get them all on here. Everything's cooking nicely, salt's dissolving. That's exactly what we want to see in here. Looks like we're going to get our final pear on there just fine. We're going to let those cook for a few minutes and then we'll come back and finish everything up. As you can see, we flipped our pears over. Some beautifully caramelized pears here on the back. Looking absolutely gorgeous. Those are going to plate up very nicely. One's on the front here, it doesn't get quite as hot, so it doesn't caramelize as quickly, but still getting a little bit of browning. Everything looks really good. We're going to wait for those to finish cooking, and then we're going to take everything inside, plate it up, and we'll show you the end result. Alright, our pears are nicely cooked, so we're going to go ahead and pull those off the salt block here. Get ready to take everything inside, plate it up. We also have a delicious, fresh, homemade tzatziki sauce to go with this as well, with a little bit of dill, a little bit of mint, a little bit of garlic, some lemon juice, some red wine vinegar, and some good Greek yogurt. That concludes our episode for today. We'll show you the final plated product in just a moment, but as always, we thank you for joining us here at Go Pound Salt, and when you do join us, please remember, happiness is just a lick away.